The door that shouldn't exist. The screaming wouldn't stop. It echoed through the vent like it was inside her own skull. Raw, cracked, unmistakably human. Rebecca stiffened mid-step, one hand still reaching for the mini-fridge. She had just wanted water, something cold to help her sleep. But now all she could do was stand there, her breath caught halfway in her throat. She wasn't even sure when it had started. The screaming. Maybe 5 minutes ago. Maybe 30. Time didn't work properly in the Belgrave Inn, especially not after dark. The first scream was full of rage. The second was all grief. The third was worse. It sounded like someone laughing through tears. The kind of sound that made her skin crawl, like it recognized something ancient and wrong. She pressed her ear to the wall. There it was again. Weeping. Then silence. Then tap, 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 fingers. Scratching at the other side of the wall, Rebecca yanked herself back like she'd touched a live wire. "Nope," she whispered under her breath, grabbing her phone. She flicked on the flashlight and scanned the room. Nothing out of place. The peeling wallpaper still sagged in the corners, and the old floral carpet still reeked faintly of cigarette ash and lemon cleaner. The hotel had been closed for renovations. Her uncle, the property manager, had offered her room 615 as a favor. A quiet, isolated place to finish her graduate thesis on 19th century funerary art. Charming, right? But nothing about this place felt right. Rebecca crossed to the door and peered out the peephole. No one. Then came a knock. 3 soft knocks. She froze. The air in the hallway looked wrong. Wavy. Off color like heat shimmer or smoke. She slowly undid the deadbolt and opened the door. The hallway was empty. At least it was supposed to be, because directly across from her room, where there had only been a blank concrete wall, and a faded fire exit only sign earlier, now stood a door. Room 616, greenish-grey paint, cracked brass handle, and the number etched in crooked black digits. Rebecca blinked, then rubbed her eyes. It wasn't there before. She knew it wasn't. She stepped into the hallway, glancing left and right. No other guests, no cleaning staff, not a single sound except for the dull hum of distant elevator machinery, and even that sounded like it was breathing instead of running. She stared at the new door. There was no mention of a room 616 in the building plans. She remembered because her uncle had joked about how the hotel skipped some rooms for superstition. There was no room 614, no 616. It simply didn't exist. Until now. She approached it slowly. Her phone's flashlight barely cut through the dimness, but she saw something on the door. A handprint, a bloody one, faint but fresh, still wet, trailing downward like someone had tried to claw their way out. She reached out, and then hesitated. Every part of her screamed to turn back, but her hand moved forward anyway, like it was acting on its own. She touched the doorknob. It was ice cold. Then came the sound. A low scraping, metal on wood, from inside the room. Something dragging across the floor. Rebecca gasped and backed up a step. Suddenly the door creaked open. On its own, no lights inside, just darkness and the smell of rotting flowers and iron. Her flashlight flickered, her pulse thundered in her ears. She turned back, her room still open, still safe. She could run back, lock the door, pretend this never happened. Tell herself. It was stress, sleep deprivation, a hallucination, but something inside room 616 called to her. It wasn't a voice. It was more like a pull behind the ribs, like gravity but emotional. She stepped in, and the door slammed shut behind her. The air in the hallway was different now, thick, heavy. Rebecca spun around, but the door had vanished. In its place was a rotting wall covered in mildew and deep scratch marks, dozens of them, some fresh, some ancient. She turned forward and moved slowly. The hallway stretched longer than it should. It curved slightly, impossibly, like it was folding in on itself. Her light flashed across a broken mirror on the wall. It reflected something behind, A shadow. She turned quickly. Nothing, but in the mirror, the shadow remained. It waved. Rebecca staggered back, heart racing. The air grew colder. She came to a larger room, like a hotel lounge from another century. Velvet chairs with stuffing peeking through the tiers, a cold fireplace, black and white photos of people she didn't recognize, all hanging at tilted angles. Then she saw her, a woman standing by the far wall, facing away, dressed in a stained housecoat. Her head tilted at a sickening angle. She was whispering into a disconnected rotary phone, her voice a dry rasp. Rebecca didn't move. Couldn't. The woman stopped whispering. The phone dropped to the floor and shattered. The woman turned around. She had no eyes, just dark, sunken holes, weeping something black and thick like oil, and she was smiling. Rebecca turned to run, but the floor tilted beneath her. She didn't fall down. She fell sideways, pulled by something unnatural. She landed in a hallway of mirrors. Each mirror reflected a version of her, sobbing, bloodied, laughing hysterically. One Rebecca reached toward her from inside the glass, mouth moving in slow, jerky movements. Another smashed her own head against the mirror until it cracked. The mirrors began shattering one by one. She heard voices in the shards, whispering, "You've been here before." She's waiting. "It's your turn now." Suddenly a mirror lit up. But instead of her reflection, it showed her real room, room 615, and her asleep in bed. Rebecca screamed and woke up. She shot upright in bed, drenched in sweat. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. The sounds of city traffic in the distance. Was it a dream? She looked around. Everything seemed normal. Same room, same peeling wallpaper. Her suitcase half open on the floor. Her laptop still on the desk, blinking with a low battery warning. She laughed nervously and rubbed her face. Then she saw it, on the bedside table. A key, old, brass, with 616 etched into it in rust. Underneath it, a note, yellowed paper, ink in old-fashioned. A cursive. "You've been checked in." Rebecca didn't remember standing up, but suddenly she was on her feet. The hallway outside was alive again. Footsteps down the corridor, distant voices. A cleaning cart squeaking by. She opened the door. Room 616 was gone, just a blank wall across from her again. She checked the hallway left and right. No sign of anyone, no sign of the door. Except the key in her hand was real, heavy, cold, and in the distance, just before the elevator doors closed on a floor above, she saw her, the eyeless woman, smiling. The room follows. Rebecca didn't sleep the next night. Not really. She stayed awake in her hotel bed, staring at the key on the nightstand, like it might grow legs and crawl away. Room 6116. A room that didn't exist. A room she stepped into, a room that vanished the next morning. The note was still there too, yellowing paper. The words hadn't changed. "You've been checked in." It felt like a joke from another time, the kind of thing a haunted hotel would leave for its final guest. Rebecca's fingers trembled as she picked the key up again. It had weight, sharp edges, too real for a dream. Maybe I'm sleepwalking, she thought. Maybe the stress finally snapped something. But there was one problem with that theory. When she walked down to the lobby to ask the front desk about room 616, the woman behind the counter, the one who had checked her in just 2 days ago, looked confused. "There's no room 616, ma'am. We go up to 615 on the guest floors. After that, it's just staff access." Rebecca tried to keep her voice calm. "So there's no renovations? No locked wing?" "No, ma'am. And you shouldn't be in any restricted areas. Is something wrong?" Rebecca hesitated. "I might have seen something, heard something." The woman's smile faltered for the first time. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "did you open any doors you weren't supposed to?" Back in room 615, Rebecca locked both deadbolts and pushed a chair under the handle for good measure. She sat on the edge of the bed with the key in her palm. It pulsed with coldness, And that smell was back, faint but unmistakable. Rotting, flowers, and something metallic. She took a photo of the key, texted it to her best friend Kylie with the message, "Tell me I'm not crazy," Kylie replied 3 minutes later. Kylie, "What is that? A murder prop?" Kylie, "That better not be from that haunted-ass hotel you told me about, Kylie. If you're messing with cursed keys, I'm calling your mom." Rebecca stared at the messages and typed back, "I think I brought something back with me." "I don't think. It's just the key." She didn't get a reply for an hour. By then, the vents had started whispering again. It began as soft static, like a busted old radio left on in another room. Then came the voice. Not screaming this time, not laughing, just whispering. Her name, over and over. "Rebecca, Rebecca, Rebecca." She clutched her ears. "Shut up." It stopped. A beat of silence. Then knock, 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 the same 3 soft knocks from the hallway. She didn't look, didn't open the door. Instead, she grabbed the key, stuffed it in a drawer, and jammed a chair against it. No sleep that night either. The next morning, the key was back on the nightstand. Not in the drawer. Another note lay beneath it. "Your stay has been extended." She packed her things within 10 minutes. By afternoon, she'd driven over 2 hours out of the city to her friend Kylie's house. Kylie opened the door in pajamas, her phone pressed to her ear. "I was just about to call you. What the hell's going on? You look, Jesus, Bex, you look awful. I need to stay here for a night or two, please." "Something's wrong with that hotel." Kylie glanced down at Rebecca's suitcase. "You didn't bring the key, right?" Rebecca's silence said enough. Kylie backed up. "Girl, nope. We are not doing haunted heirloom nonsense in my house." "It followed me," Rebecca said, stepping inside. "Even if I left it, it'd come back." That night, they locked every door and window, salt lines at the baseboards. Kylie even brought out her mum's old sage bundle from a drawer and waved it around like a smoke-blasting fairy. "You are cleansed," she joked, but the tension didn't lift. At 2:42 a.m., Rebecca woke to the sound of sobbing. She sat up in the guest bed, sweat soaking her shirt. Her phone buzzed beside her. Unknown number 1. New voicemail. She didn't recognize the number. With shaking hands, she pressed play. The message was quiet at first, just static. Then someone, breathing on the other end. A woman's. Voice whispered, "You've been checked in." Then silence, then a soft sound, like fingernails tapping glass. Her phone screen flickered and went black. She dropped it. Her breath hitched when she noticed the doorknob turning slowly. The door to the guest room creaked open, but no one stood there. Instead, lying neatly in the doorway, was the room's 616 key. And next to it this time, the note read, "No checkouts allowed." Kylie screamed when she found Rebecca curled up on the bathroom floor an hour later, shivering and whispering nonsense. "Who did this?" Kylie asked, kneeling beside her. Rebecca just stared at the mirror. Her eyes were bloodshot. "She's in it," she whispered. "She watches through the mirrors." Kylie followed her gaze and went cold, because in the steamed-up bathroom mirror, someone had written 3 words, but neither of them had been in there long enough to fog anything up. The words read, "Join me inside." They drove straight to Kylie's uncle, a retired priest, with an unhealthy fascination for paranormal cases. He lived 2 towns over and answered the door already holding a Bible. Kylie did the talking while Rebecca sat on the couch, clutching a mug of untouched tea. She didn't just dream it, Kylie said. "There was a room, Uncle Mike, a door that appeared and disappeared, a key that follows her, messages, whispers, voices in the vents, and things in the mirror." Father Mike knelt in front of Rebecca. "You've seen her, haven't you?" he asked gently. Rebecca nodded slowly. "Eyeless?" Rebecca blinked. How did you know that?" His face darkened. Room 616 was removed from the Belgrave floor plans after 1973, he said. That year, 5 guests vanished over the span of 3 months. One of the housekeepers swore she saw them entering a room that didn't exist. Room 616. The hotel sealed that entire section off, pretended it was just bad plumbing, but you found it again. I didn't mean to, Rebecca whispered. I didn't look for it. Father Mike looked grave. You don't have to look for room 616. Once it wants you, it finds you. Later that night, Rebecca sat alone in Kylie's room while they made dinner. She tried to calm her thoughts, block out the memories, slow her racing heart. Then she caught a flicker of movement in the mirror across the room. She turned to look. Her reflection was still. But something was off. She leaned closer. In the reflection, her smile slowly stretched, wet and unnatural, even though she wasn't smiling. Her reflection blinked once, then whispered, "Come back." The mirror cracked from the inside. Rebecca screamed. They found her curled on the floor again, bleeding from her nose. The mirror was untouched, but the image of her smiling reflection haunted her even with her eyes closed. Father Mike made a decision that night. "You have to go back," he said. "Back to the source." Rebecca looked like she wanted to scream. "You want me to walk back into room 616? "No," he said. "I want you to destroy it." She laughed bitterly. "It's not even real. How do you destroy a room that appears and vanishes? You bring the key, you bring the truth, and you bring something it didn't expect, resistance." Rebecca stared down at the key again. Its edges seemed sharper now, almost alive. The next morning, Rebecca returned to the Belgrave Inn. She wore black, tied her hair back. In her pocket, the key, a flask of holy water from Father Mike, and a note she had written the night before. "I am not afraid of you." Room 616 didn't wait long. By the time she reached the 5th floor, the door was already there. Dead center, faded green, brass handle, number painted crooked. 616. No screams this time, just silence. She stepped forward, and the door opened. Before she touched it, inside was the same hallway of rotting wallpaper and scratches. But this time, Rebecca didn't flinch. She stepped inside and whispered, "You invited me. Now face me." The door slammed shut behind her. The room follows. Rebecca didn't leave the hotel the next day, not because she didn't want to, but because something wouldn't let her. It started when she packed her bag. She zipped it up, turned around to grab her purse, and when she looked back, the bag was gone. She tore the room apart, checked under the bed, behind the curtains, in the wardrobe. Nothing. The bag just vanished. And in its place, on the neatly made bed, the brass room 616 key, lying in the exact center of the blanket, waiting. Rebecca's fingers trembled as she picked it up. She didn't want to. Every cell in her body screamed, "Don't touch it," but she couldn't leave it behind. And tucked beneath it now, another note. Same yellowing paper, same dark red ink. "Your room is not finished with you." Down at the front desk, the same woman from check-in met her with a tight smile. "I need to check out," Rebecca said. The woman clicked through her computer, her brow furrowing. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "It's not letting me complete your reservation." "What?" "There's no record of a check-in under your name." Rebecca leaned over the counter. "You gave me a key. I have a receipt." "No, ma'am. I checked the system. You're not in it." The woman glanced up. "And frankly, if you're staying in any unauthorized area, I have to inform the manager." "Room 615, Rebecca said quickly. "I'm in 615. The woman frowned. "That room's under maintenance. Has been for weeks. It's marked closed." "No," Rebecca said, backing away, voice shaking. "I've been in it for 2 nights. The light works, the water runs. I'll have to ask you to leave the lobby, ma'am." The security guard was already walking toward her. Outside, the sunlight was too bright. Rebecca stood on the sidewalk, the sounds of traffic ringing hollow in her ears. She clutched the brass key tight in her palm like a weapon. She felt insane and worse. She started to feel watched, not the normal kind of watched, but inside out, like her thoughts weren't private anymore. Like someone else was thinking through her. She booked a rideshare back to her apartment across town. The driver didn't speak. Rebecca tried not to look at him, but when she glanced into the rear-view mirror, his reflection was smiling at her. His real face wasn't. His reflection was. She didn't say anything, didn't move, just gripped her purse until her knuckles turned white and whispered, "Almost home, just get home." Her apartment was cold when she walked in. She hadn't turned the heat off. She hadn't touched the thermostat at all. The lights flickered. She turned on the living room lamp. It buzzed like a fly trap and dimmed to a sickly orange. She dropped her bag, kicked off her shoes and made it halfway to the kitchen before stopping. The room 616 key was already on her coffee table. She hadn't taken it out of her purse. This time she screamed until her throat tore. She grabbed the key and threw it out the window. It clattered onto the fire escape and slid out of sight, but when she turned around, it was sitting on her kitchen counter, right next to her mug, like it had always lived there. That night, she didn't sleep. The dreams came anyway. She was back. In the hallway outside room 616, only now the walls were breathing. In and out. The wallpaper peeled like skin. The door at the end wasn't green anymore. It was black, charred, and from beneath it, liquid oozed. Something on the other side of the door was whispering her name, but not in anger, in hunger. She woke up, screaming into her pillow, and found a note next to her. It wasn't there when she went to sleep. The ink was wet. The edges of the paper burned. "You never left. You just think you did." She ran to her bedroom mirror. She needed to see something, anything that made sense. Her reflection blinked. Normal. Fine. Then, slowly, it tilted its head even though she didn't move. Rebecca backed away. The mirror version of her smiled, lifted a hand and tapped. The glass, tap, 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 3 soft knocks, like from the hotel hallway. She went to a priest the next day, desperate, begging. "I brought something back with me," she said. "I think it's inside me now. I think it wants to keep me." The priest looked at the key she laid before him and went pale. "You need to destroy that," he said. "I've tried. Burn it. It doesn't stay gone." Then, "It's marked you." Kylie came over 2 days later. She hadn't heard from Rebecca and got worried, found her friend in the dark, apartment freezing, every mirror covered with sheets or towels. Rebecca was in the bathtub, fully clothed, whispering, "What are you saying?" Kylie asked, pulling her out. Rebecca looked up with bloodshot eyes. "She talks when I sleep. She says I belong to her now. She says no one ever leaves the room." Kylie took the key. "You're done. I'm throwing this thing in the damn ocean." Rebecca screamed, "Don't touch it!" Too late. Kylie's nose started bleeding. She fell back, eyes rolled up, started laughing. A horrible, choking laugh that wasn't hers. When she snapped out of it, she had scratch marks on her arms, writing, words clawed into her skin. "One night stay." Rebecca called the hotel again. "Block number." When the front desk answered, the voice wasn't the woman's, it was something wet and whispering. "We're preparing your room. Miss Larkin, it's time to return." She hung up. 5 seconds later, her phone buzzed. One new photo from an unknown number. She opened it. It was her, sleeping, curled up on her bed, taken from the corner of the room. She wasn't alone in the picture. Behind her stood a tall, pale figure with no eyes, head tilted. The police came. Rebecca told them someone had broken in. They checked the apartment. No sign of forced entry. But they found something else, a door behind the hallway closet, a door that shouldn't exist, painted green, rusty handle. Number on it, 616. The officer touched it. "It's fake," he said. "Just painted onto the wall." But as they turned to leave, Rebecca looked back. The door was open, and from inside she heard her own voice whisper, "Help me." She packed that night. Not her clothes. Just three things: the key, a bottle of holy water, and a note that read, "I'm ending this." She got in the car, drove 5 hours straight back to the Belgrave Hotel. The sky grew darker the closer she got. Her GPS blinked out, street signs twisted. By the time she reached the hotel, it looked abandoned, boarded up, weeds in the driveway, but the lights in room 616 were still on. She stepped inside. The lobby was empty. No one at the desk, no music, no voices, just breathing. The building itself breathing. She climbed the stairs, floor by floor, and on the 6th floor, there it was. The door, waiting for her. Room 616. Green paint, crooked number. Opened just a crack. Rebecca stepped forward, and the key grew hot in her hand. The room that remembers you, the door creaked open before Rebecca touched it. Not fast, not slow, just wide enough to invite her. She stood at the threshold, holding her breath. The key in her hand was burning now, not metaphorically but literally hot, blistering her palm. Inside, the room was bigger than it should be. No hotel room should feel like this. The ceilings too high, walls too far, light too dim. It wasn't even room 616 anymore. The number on the inside of the door read, Room Echo. She stepped in. The door slammed, shut behind her. The key vanished from her hand. She didn't scream. She expected that part by now. What she didn't expect was how familiar everything looked. The wallpaper, blue with faded stars. The armchair, threadbare green corduroy. The scent, lavender and old dust. This was her childhood bedroom, down to the smallest detail. Even the scar in the wall from where she'd thrown a snow globe at her brother. Except this wasn't possible. That house burned down 10 years ago. Her hands trembled. "I'm not dreaming," she whispered. "I'm not dreaming." A photo sat on the nightstand. She picked it up. It was her, but younger, maybe 12, and behind her, in the photo, the same green door. Only this time, the number read 1. She flipped the photo, writing in blood-red ink, "Some rooms never leave you. They grow with you." A voice whispered from the wardrobe. Soft, shaky. "Rebecca." She turned. "Who's there?" Silence. Then, and the click of something unlocking. The wardrobe door creaked open. Inside wasn't clothes. It was herself. Bound, gagged, staring with wide, glassy eyes. Her twin, her reflection, a version of her that had never left this room, and on her doppelgangers. Forehead, "Checked in," carved in raw, bloody letters. Rebecca fell back, crawled across the floor, heart hammering. She blinked, and the wardrobe was empty. No bound body, no photo, just dust. Was it a hallucination, a memory, a warning? The room answered with a sound from the bathroom, running water. She moved, toward it slowly. Each step felt like it aged her 5 years. Her reflection in the mirror was already different. Grey hairs, sunken eyes, the beginning of a rot she didn't remember earning. The bathtub overflowed. But instead of water, blood. Thick, black-red blood that carried voices, whispers, her name, over and over. "Rebecca, Rebecca, Rebecca. Let us in." She turned to run. But the door to leave wasn't there anymore. Where the door had been was just a wall, seamless, smooth, and on it scratched in frantic strokes. Every door is a mirror now. She spun, gasping for air. Her chest tightened, panic flared. She screamed loud, raw, until her voice cracked. Then calm, not peace, but numb. She stood still, looked around, and noticed something that hadn't been there before. A second door across the room, same size, different color, black with a white handle, no number. She approached it. When she opened it, she didn't step into another room. She stepped into a memory. It was winter. She was 7. Her brother was playing in the snow. The pond was frozen. He chased her across it, laughing, and then the ice cracked. He fell in. She screamed for help, but nobody came. This was the day he died, but this time he didn't sink. This time! He floated, turned his head and whispered, "You let me drown." Rebecca stumbled back into room echo, breath hitched, eyes wet. This room wasn't just haunted. It was feeding on her, feeding on guilt, fear, grief. Every door in the room was now a memory trap, each one twisted something from her past, making her relive it differently. She opened another, her mother's funeral. Only this time, Rebecca was the one in the casket, and her mother stood over her, whispering, "You never said goodbye." Another, her old therapist's office. Rebecca sat in the chair, crying, but the therapist was faceless, just a mirror with a mouth. "You lied when you said you got better," it hissed. "You brought the sickness here." Rebecca slammed the door shut. Her ears bled now. The walls moaned. The original room, the hotel's room 616, was gone. Swallowed by memory, all that remained was this maze of doors, all echoing, all waiting, and at the center of the floor something grew, a trapdoor, wood, old, with rusted hinges, no handle, just a carved message. "Open me to remember what you buried." Rebecca knelt beside it. Her body ached like it had lived 1,000 years. She touched the trapdoor. It flew open, darkness below, and whispers rising up. She climbed down the wooden steps, barefoot, shivering, and emerged into a basement that she recognized immediately. Her childhood home's basement, where she used to play, where she used to hide, where her uncle used to... No. She backed up. There he was. Her uncle sitting in a chair, face shadowed, legs crossed. "You remember now," he said. "I'm not here for you," she whispered. "You're dead. You've been dead for years." He stood, his face peeled back, layer by layer, revealing not skin but keys. Hundreds of them. He opened his mouth, and dozens of tiny brass keys spilled out like teeth. "You're the door now," he hissed, "and doors must always stay open." She screamed and fled up the stairs, back into the room, but it wasn't the same room anymore. Now it was lined with mirrors, every wall, every surface, each mirror reflected a different version of her. One sobbing, one bleeding, one laughing manically, and in the center stood a tall, crooked figure, skin white as bone, no eyes, just a smile. The thing that had followed her since the hotel, since the first night. It stepped forward, spoke without sound. The voice filled her head. "You never left room 616. That world out there, that was our dream. This is where you truly are." Rebecca dropped to her knees, everything shattered. Reality, her mind, the line between guilt and possession. And then she remembered the photo, the one from the nightstand. The door number had changed. 2 now. She looked at the mirror behind her. Etched on its surface, room 3 of 6. She hadn't escaped. She hadn't gone anywhere. The hotel was just the beginning. Every room, a deeper layer, a descent. Room 616 wasn't a place, it was a path, and she had 3 more doors to go, the room that eats time. Rebecca stopped looking for exits. There were none. No matter what she touched, screamed, or opened, the rules of the world had changed. She no longer navigated time or space. She navigated pain. The next door was waiting. A tall red one, with no handle, no knob, no hinges, just a slit across the top, dripping something thick and black. She stood in front of it, dizzy from hunger, eyes raw from crying. The room whispered in voices that weren't hers. "Open it. You need to see the day you stopped being real." When the door opened, this time on its own, there was no sound, no wind, no change in temperature. Just silence so deep it hurt her eardrums. The moment she crossed the threshold, she collapsed to her knees. Gravity shifted, or maybe time did. Everything was grey, the walls, the floor, her hands. Her voice was gone, and ahead of her was a table. Long, made of stone, 6 chairs, one of them occupied. It was her mother, but not young, not sick, not grieving, ancient. Her skin hung loose like parchment. Her hair was bone white. Her fingernails, yellowed and cracked, tapped against the stone. She didn't look up, Rebecca, she whispered without opening her mouth. You stopped visiting. Rebecca staggered forward. You're not real. You died when I was 23. The old woman turned her head. Her eyes were hollow, but burning. You let me rot inside you. That's why I'm still alive. The other chairs pulled themselves back from the table. Figures sat down. Every version of Rebecca across time. Child, teenager, addict, liar, victim, monster. Each took a seat. One of them held a stopwatch. It ticked backward. Time's nearly up, the monster Rebecca said. We only get so many minutes before you become the final room. The child Rebecca looked at her. Why didn't you stop him? She meant the uncle. The addict, Rebecca nodded. You numbed us out. Now we can't feel the ghosts anymore. Rebecca backed away from the table. You're not me. You're not me. No, said the oldest version of herself, skeletal, sitting farthest from the light. We're what you'll become if you stay. A loud cracking noise echoed. Above her, the ceiling fractured, and then came the sound of clocks, thousands of them, ticking, tocking, slowing down, speeding up. She screamed, but the scream made no noise. A giant grandfather clock fell from the ceiling and shattered beside her, bleeding sand. In that sand, something moved. A face, her brother's, pale, wet, cold. You're wasting it, he said. Time, air, memory, all of it. The floor fell. Out beneath her. She landed in a hospital room. Lights flickered. An IV bag dripped dark green fluid. The machines beeped backward. She was in the bed, hooked up to tubes, sleeping. Next to her sat a man, clean cut, wedding ring, suit. She recognized him. Someone she dated once, briefly, a decade ago. He leaned in and whispered, You flatlined 3 years ago. You've been in the room since. And then he placed a card on her chest. Rebecca walked closer and read it. In memoriam, Rebecca Hart died in her sleep. Room 616. This wasn't possible. She was alive. She was moving. She was thinking. She felt pain, panic. But as she looked down at herself, she saw her feet were disappearing, pixel by pixel. Don't think of escape, said the nurse that walked in next. She had no eyes, just sockets stuffed with black thread. Every minute you resist, the room grows teeth. Behind the nurse, the hospital door turned into another mirror. Rebecca ran. This time, when she passed through the mirror, she woke up, or thought she did. She was back in the hotel room. Original layout, bed, curtains, light, everything normal. She fell to the floor and wept. Then the phone rang. She picked it up with shaking hands. A voice she didn't recognize whispered, You've reached room 4 of 6. Estimated time left, 27 minutes. To extend your stay, surrender what you've been hiding. The line went dead. The floor beneath her shimmered. A trapdoor appeared again, but this time it had her name engraved on it. Beneath, trauma registered. Entry permitted. She opened it. The space below was a library, but every book had the same title, What You Did That Night. Shelves stretched forever. Rebecca took one book down. She opened to a random page. You ignored her message. She died that hour. Another. You said he was lying. He wasn't. Another. You remembered only what made you feel clean. She dropped the book. Backed away. Fell. The floor became pages, fluttering up, surrounding her in paper, screaming paper, and then fire. The books caught flame. She ran through fire and memory. She saw her brother's hand reaching from the ice, her mother screaming at her not to leave, the therapist handing her pills with a wink, the uncle whispering, You owe me silence. She kept running until the flames vanished. She found herself in a white hallway. At the end, 2 doors, one labeled Escape, one labeled Truth. She didn't hesitate. She ran toward escape. The knob turned like butter. Light poured through. Warmth. She stepped out. A beach. seagulls, sky. She was outside, free, until she looked behind her. The door was gone, but so were her shadows. She tried to speak. Her voice was someone else's. She tried to scream. Only laughter came out, and then her reflection appeared in the water. It was the faceless thing from the mirror room. Its smile stretched wider. You chose false escape. That means you're ready for room 5. The ocean drained into a spiral. Rebecca was pulled in screaming. She landed hard. Concrete, fluorescent lights. A mental hospital. A sign overhead read, Room 5 of 6. The place where they put people who talk about us. A nurse approached. Her name tag read, Rebecca, volunteer. Rebecca tried to run, but orderlies grabbed her arms. You again, the nurse muttered. Back where you belong. They injected her. The world swam. She passed out, and when she woke, strapped to a bed, she heard the voice whisper once more. The same one from the first night. The faceless one. You were always in the room. You were born in it. You tried to leave once. Remember how that ended? Rebecca's breath stopped. Her memories twisted. Was any of this real? Was she trapped in room 616? Or was room 616 trapped inside her? What died with him didn't stay. Dead Rebecca lay strapped to the hospital bed, her limbs frozen under thick leather cuffs as fluorescent lights buzzed above. In this room there was no screaming, no fire, no shifting walls, just sterile silence, and a single speaker above her head that clicked on and off, like a dying heart monitor. Click. You're doing better, Rebecca. Click. You're almost ready for the truth. Then came the buzz of static. And a new voice, male, young, her brother's, Beck's. Are you listening? Her breath caught. She hadn't heard that voice in 10 years. Not since the lake. She turned her head as far as the straps allowed. The mirror in the corner, the one you'd expect to be two-way glass, rippled. A boy stepped out. Not a ghost, not a shadow. Him, Toby. He looked exactly 12. Hair wet, lips blue, wrapped in the same hoodie he wore that day, the one that said Camp Echo Pines. His socks were muddy, his skin pale, but his eyes still kind. You never told them what really happened, he said. Rebecca sobbed, because they would have locked me up. Toby took a step closer. The cuffs unbuckled with a mechanical hiss. You locked yourself up instead, he said. Now it's time. Room 5 doesn't lie. The walls dissolved. She wasn't in the hospital anymore. She was at the lake, the one from that summer, the one where she let it all start. Trees loomed in the distance, dripping fog. Water lapped at the dock. Mosquitoes hung frozen in the air, as if time were paused. But he wasn't frozen. Uncle Dan, standing at the edge of the dock, holding a fishing pole. He turned and smiled. And suddenly Rebecca was 9 again. No control, no escape, just a little girl with bruises too deep to name. The memory played. Dan saying, "It's our secret, right?" Her little self nodding. Quiet, afraid. Then her brother running toward them, Dan grabbing him by the arm, saying something sharp, then the push. It hadn't been an accident. Toby hadn't slipped. He'd been shoved straight into the water. Rebecca stood frozen, watching, screaming. Inside her own mind, do something. You saw this. You were there. But the child version of herself just stood there, hands shaking, whispering, I didn't see anything. Toby's body disappeared under the surface. Silence followed, not even a splash. Dan walked away. Rebecca watched. The memory freeze at that moment. She stepped toward the water, looked down. Her reflection stared back, but with no eyes. Toby appeared beside her again. You lied because you thought they'd blame you. Rebecca collapsed. I was scared. I was a kid. You still are, he said gently. That's why room 5 never ends. The lake rippled. A second reflection appeared beside hers. Dan's face, older, grinning, dead. Time to forgive me, sweetheart. it said. "I won't," she hissed. "You already did, every time you said nothing." And then something burst from the lake, a hand, pale, bloated, writhing. It grabbed her ankle and pulled. She plunged into the blackness, not water, not air, just void, with faces, her mother's tear-streaked eyes, her therapist's smug smirk, her addict self whispering just one pill. Toby, younger and younger, until he was an infant. She was drowning in versions of guilt. Then, light, Rebecca landed in a classroom. Middle school desks, chalkboard, red apple on the teacher's desk. But the students weren't kids. They were dead. Each desk was filled with a ghostly version of someone she'd lost. The girl from group therapy who OD'd 2 weeks later. Her neighbor who hung herself after confiding in Rebecca. Her mother grey and trembling. A faceless boy who she never called back. The teacher was Dan, with a smile drawn in blood. "Welcome back, class," he said. "Today's lesson, what makes a victim complicit?" Rebecca shook her head. "This isn't real. None of this is." Dan pointed at her. "Answer the question." She looked around. No one met her eyes. A chalkboard message wrote itself behind him. She let it happen. She looked away. She never told. She let us die. The words bled down the wall. Then, thunder. The classroom peeled away like wallpaper. Now, she stood in a church, a coffin at the altar, inside it herself, eyes closed. Mouth sewn shut, Toby stood beside the casket. "They tried to save you," he whispered, "but you already belonged to the room." Rebecca staggered back. "No, I'm still alive. I fought this. I made it through 4 rooms. Toby shook his head. "You never made it out of the lake." She blinked. "What?" "The cold got to your brain. You drowned that day. You've been looping in here ever since." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "This is the final piece, Rebecca. You need to choose. Go back and forget, or remember and finally leave." 2 doors appeared, this time no labels, just a feeling. One was warm. Golden light leaked beneath it, the smell of vanilla, old books, and her mother's perfume. The other door was cold steel, rattling chains behind it. The air smelled like decay. Toby nodded toward the dark one. "That's the one that hurts," he said. "But that's the one that's real." She turned to him. "Will I see you again?" He smiled softly. "If you do this right, maybe not." She chose the steel door. It burned to touch. Inside was a mirror, full length, cracked, filthy. Written across it in red was, "Room 6, the one you've always avoided." She stared at her reflection. The thing staring back wasn't a monster. It was her, real, human, scarred, but awake. She looked down. The card Toby had given her was in her hand again. Rebecca Hart, room 616, time of death, unknown, truth confirmed. The mirror rippled, a voice whispered, for the final time. "Truth accessed. You may now proceed to room 6. Room 6. Some doors should never open." The steel door groaned open. Rebecca stepped inside, her breath misting in the cold. No fire. No ghosts, just a mirror. Again. This time it filled the entire wall, floor to ceiling, but it didn't reflect her. It showed a room, dim, flickering, somewhere else. A hotel hallway, carpeted in red, lamps humming, a door at the end. 616. Rebecca recognized it, not from the dream. From real life, the hotel she checked into the day Toby died. The one she stayed at before the funeral. The one she'd never returned to. She reached out, and her hand passed through the glass. She stumbled, out into the hallway, carpet under her feet, wallpaper peeling, faint music somewhere, Glenn Miller maybe. Rebecca turned around. No door behind her, only forward. She walked. Each step thudded too loud, like her bones echoed. Room 601. 602. 6:03, and then just before 6:16, a gap where 6:13, 6:14 and 6:15 should have been. She looked down the hallway. Only one door remained. 6:16, no keycard, no peephole, just a brass handle and something carved into the wood. The room knows you now. She opened it. Inside was her childhood bedroom, the pink walls, the rocking horse, the closet with the missing doorknob. She staggered back. No! Then came the sound, faint crying. She turned. In the corner sat herself. Maybe 7 years. Old knees tucked to chest, hair tangled, crying like she'd never stop. Rebecca stepped forward. "It's okay," she said softly. "I remember now. I remember everything." The child looked up. Her eyes were completely black. "You waited too long," the child whispered. "Now the room remembers you too." The walls shifted, the bed caught fire, the ceiling cracked open like a skull, and from the closet came laughter. Dan stepped out, still smiling, still dead. He held Toby by the wrist, dangling like a puppet. "Say goodbye, Rebecca," he sneered. "I said goodbye 10 years ago," she said. "You're done." Dan's face split open. Not blood. Not flesh, just void. Darkness poured out. Like a reverse scream, Toby dropped to the floor and looked up at her. "I'm not staying here," he said. "Not again." She helped him to his feet. Together they turned. The bedroom became a hall of doors, endless. Each one had a name. Cassandra OD'd in 2018. June died by suicide. 2020, Rebecca, found in bathtub. 2023, she stopped at her own, waited. "I want to live," she whispered. Toby squeezed her hand. "Then leave it shut." She let go of the doorknob and ran. The hall melted away. Now she stood in the hotel lobby, the real one, front desk empty. Morning light filtering through the tall glass windows. She looked at her hands. They were bruised, but real, dirty, but warm. Breathing hurt, but she was breathing. She walked to the exit. Behind her, the elevator dinged. A voice came over the intercom. "Guest Rebecca Hart has checked out." She didn't look back. 1 week later, September 22nd, Rebecca sat on a bench outside a small cafe. The sky was pale, clouds heavy with autumn. She sipped coffee, no shaking in her hands now. In front of her sat a notebook, handwritten on the first page. "Things I remember, but never said." She started writing. Toby didn't fall. Dan pushed him. "I saw it. I lied. I forgave myself anyway." A boy passed by with his mother, red hoodie just like Toby's. He waved, she waved back. A sparrow landed on the bench beside her. For the first time in years, she didn't flinch. That night, she dreamed of the room. Just one door now, no number, no sound. It didn't open. It didn't need to. She had already left. Final line, narration ending. Room 616 wasn't cursed, it wasn't haunted. It was a place where the dead waited for truth, and now that truth has been told. It waits for the next soul who's buried more than just secrets.